There's something poetic about a garage door deciding your fate. Not a dramatic car crash or a mysterious envelope or an overheard phone call, nope. Just one old, creaky, temperamental garage door with a grudge against my peace of mind. It started with a regular Thursday. The kind of day where the biggest conflict should have been the office printer jamming for the fourth time in a row or someone microwaving fish in the break room again. Nothing major. Just life humming along like it does when you're unaware it's about to take a sharp turn off a cliff. I got home a little early that day. Not for any suspicious reason. Just pure, blessed dumb luck. We'd had a glitch in the system at the accounting firm, and management decided to close up shop early, probably so they could pretend they care about work-life balance. I wasn't complaining. I beat the 5 o'clock traffic, grabbed a cup of gas station coffee that tasted like betrayal long before betrayal had a face, and pulled into the driveway of our perfectly average house in suburban Missouri. Now, the garage door. This thing has been the diva of our home for 3 years running. It opens halfway, decides it's tired, and then either slams down like a moody teenager or stays stuck in some awkward purgatory. I've begged Julie to let me replace it, but she insisted as character, which, in Julie speak, means it's broken, but she's emotionally attached to the brokenness. A metaphor, now that I think of it. Anyway, I hit the garage remote and, predictably, the door shuttered halfway up and froze, grunting like it was insulted by the very concept of functioning. I sighed, parked outside, and walked around to the front door. That's when I noticed it. The second car in the driveway. Now, we're not talking sports car or black SUV with tinted windows like in the movies. This was a beige sedan. The kind of car a dentist drives to weekend Bible study. It was bland enough to be invisible unless you weren't expecting it, which I wasn't. Julie never mentioned company. Then again, Julie never mentioned a lot of things lately. Like how she was suddenly taking space to read more fiction and reconnect with herself, which mostly meant sitting in the guest room with her headphones on while I learned more about Scandinavian crime dramas than any normal man should. I unlocked the front door, quiet as a man who suspects nothing but smells something off. Not a literal smell. Don't worry, this isn't one of those stories. No half-eaten sandwiches left behind by secret lovers. Just an atmosphere. Like the air inside the house had been holding its breath and didn't know whether to exhale or scream. I heard voices. One of them Julie's. The other one? Male. Not baritone and mysterious, just nasal. Clipped. The kind of voice you imagine belongs to a man who calls tech support and says, "I demand to speak with a manager," without blinking. I couldn't make out what they were saying, only that it was animated. Like a podcast I wasn't invited to. I didn't barge in. I didn't even peek. I just did what any self-respecting, confused husband would do. I tiptoed into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and pretended I wasn't eavesdropping while positioning myself near the air vent that's conveniently connected to the living room. And then, from the depths of suburban soap opera hell, came the line that changed everything. He has no idea. I mean, I literally used our anniversary dinner to sneak out and meet you. The man thinks a reservation at a chain steakhouse is romantic. That was Julie. No hesitation, no remorse, just casual, like she was reading off a grocery list. I didn't drop the glass. That would have been too theatrical. I just stood there, staring at the microwave like it had betrayed me too. The guy laughed. A snort, really. He seems like the type who organizes his sock drawer alphabetically. First of all, I don't. I organize them by color, like a civilized person. Second, okay, no, there is no second. The man was sitting in my house, on my couch, insulting me with a voice that sounded like he gave motivational speeches in LinkedIn comments. They went on, and I listened, because once you open that door, curiosity becomes a very persistent roommate. I found out more in 10 minutes than I had in the last 6 months. The guy, his name was Darren, because of course it was Darren, was Julie's coworker. Middle management. Likes wine tastings and used the phrase emotional synergy without irony. Apparently, this little connection started when Julie organized a team-building retreat and Darren offered to help with the spreadsheet. Next thing you know, they're sharing more than just PowerPoint presentations. But here's the kicker, their affair wasn't a messy, passionate explosion. It was organized. Scheduled. Like a recurring Zoom call. Thursdays at lunch, alternating weekends. Julie even had a burner email account. The woman can't keep track of our Netflix password, but suddenly she's Jason Bourne. Now, you're probably wondering what I did next. Did I storm into the living room? Confront them with righteous fury? Call the police? Nope. I did the most dangerous thing a quiet man can do. I made a sandwich. That's right. I calmly toasted some bread, added turkey, lettuce, and mustard. No cheese. I'm lactose intolerant and emotionally wounded, not self-destructive. Then I went upstairs, sat on the bed, and started planning. Not revenge. I'm not that dramatic. But clarity. Because here's the thing, I wasn't heartbroken. Not really. You can't break a heart that's already been collecting dust under emotional furniture for months. What I felt was something between relief and awe. Like when you finally spot the magician's wire after years of watching the same trick. And in that clarity, I realized something. Julie didn't just cheat on me. She underestimated me. And if there's one thing I've learned in my 42 years, it's this. Never underestimate a quiet man with access to your Wi-Fi, your Amazon account, and a color-coded folder labeled joint taxes. But we'll get to that. For now, let's just say Thursday ended with me sleeping in the guest room, Julie thinking I had a late night at work, and Darren presumably texting her about how heroic he felt for not spilling mustard on my couch. Oh, Darren. Bless your beige little heart. The next morning started with a lie, which I delivered with the enthusiasm of a man who's recently discovered his wife has been spending Thursdays exchanging team-building exercises for extracurricular ones with Darren from middle management. Julie was making coffee, humming like someone who had no idea her Thursday hobby group had been eavesdropped on through the HVAC system. I walked into the kitchen, yawned dramatically, and asked how her night was. She said she went to bed early and dreamed of Iceland. I don't know why she picked Iceland. Maybe Darren is into glaciers. Maybe lying makes her sleepy. I nodded like a man who believes his wife has Iceland-themed dreams and pretended to scroll on my phone, even though I was just staring at a blank notes app with the title, Darren is a Tool. I wasn't mad. I was invested. Curious, even. Cheating is one thing, boring cheating is another. Julie wasn't sneaking around like some tragic heroine in a mystery novel. No. She was having scheduled, color-coded emotional affairs with a man who, based on his voice alone, probably does crosswords and pin and brags about it. She left for work with a smile and a love you that somehow hit differently now. Like someone throwing a paper airplane labeled affection while quietly lighting a fuse underneath your chair. So I started investigating. Not in the private eye, fedora-wearing way. No trench coat, no binoculars. Just me, a Google search history that now includes how to act completely normal when your wife is lying to your face, and a lot of time. Step 1. Her laptop. Julie, bless her confident soul, believed in the power of trust, which in our house meant her passwords were all saved in Chrome. I logged in, half expecting to find spreadsheets and Pinterest boards. Instead, I discovered something far more educational, her shared project folder from work. In the folder was a Word document titled Q2 Planning Notes, which was, in reality, not about Q2. It was a log, a full-blown emotional diary about her connection with Darren, disguised as a document about budget forecasts. Truly, nothing says romance like hiding your affair in Microsoft Office. Julie wrote like someone who thought she was in a French film. Words like magnetic and transcendent were thrown around like we weren't all living in a 3-bedroom house in Missouri with a neighbor who grills in cargo shorts year-round. And Darren? He replied in the comments. Yes. The man was leaving Word document comments on her emotional essays like this was some kind of romantic group project. So true, he wrote. You deserve to be truly seen. Underlined, italicized. I gave it a 6 out of 10 for creativity and 2 for formatting. Here's the thing though, Julie didn't just write about her feelings. She rated them. Each week had a scale, like she was tracking her mood for an app. Tuesday, 6.5. Thursday, 9.2. Sunday, neutral. Apparently I was the Sunday feeling. I took that personally. But it wasn't enough to know they were exchanging philosophical wisdom through budget templates. I wanted data. And I had it, because Julie also synced her calendar with our family desktop. Something about being organized and keeping transparency. A concept I now find hilarious. According to the calendar, Julie had recurring strategy sessions scheduled every Thursday at 1:15 p.m. That was her and Darren's designated time slot. I know this because she used emojis. 2 puzzle pieces and a light bulb. If that isn't code for something vaguely self-important and inappropriate, I don't know what is. I stared at the screen for a while, sipping from a mug she gave me for our anniversary last year that says, World's Most Average Husband. At the time, I thought it was a joke. Now I suspect it was a confession. So I made a plan. Not a dramatic one, just something subtle. I decided I'd go to her office. Not with flowers or demands. With questions. About her workplace strategy sessions. I arrived at her office building dressed like a man with a purpose. A khaki button-down, the same pants I wore to her cousin's barbecue, and a face that said, "I'm just a guy bringing my wife lunch." Except I wasn't bringing her lunch. I was bringing something much more powerful: idle conversation and awkward timing. The receptionist was too nice to question my vague story about dropping something off for Julie. She waved me through with a smile and a pin that didn't work. I walked past cubicles full of people pretending to be busy and found Julie's desk. She wasn't there. But Darren was. I'd never seen him in person before. He was exactly as beige as I imagined. Buttoned-up shirt, slightly too tight. Hairstyled like he thought he was younger than he was. He looked at me with the faint suspicion of a man who suspects someone is about to criticize his spreadsheet formatting. "Oh, you must be," he started, extending a hand. I didn't shake it. "Aaron, Julie's husband. Just here to surprise her. You know, being romantic." I said it with the enthusiasm of someone describing dental insurance. His hand slowly retracted, and for a brief moment, his mouth did a little twitch. Not a smile, not a frown. Just a flicker of internal panic. That's when I knew. This man couldn't handle surprises, which made him the perfect person to surprise. "She stepped out for a bit," he said. "No problem," I replied. "Mind if I wait?" He blinked. "Actually, we've got a meeting." "Oh, like a strategy session?" Silence. "Puzzle piece. Light bulb?" I added. His mouth opened and closed like he was buffering. I watched him try to decide whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. But he didn't know that. "Hey, no worries," I said casually. "I've got some time. I'm between, tasks." I had no tasks. I just enjoyed watching Darren squirm. He stood there, awkward and confused, before saying he needed to check something and vanished down the hallway like a man realizing his life had recently become very complicated. I didn't wait for Julie. I'd already seen what I needed. Later that night, she came home and said her day was exhausting. "Too many strategy sessions," she said, rubbing her temples like her emotional affair was giving her migraines. I nodded, handed her the mail, and asked if she wanted to watch something. She picked a documentary on ancient rituals. I made a note of that. There was no confrontation, no dramatic yelling, just two people sitting side by side, one with a secret and the other with a growing spreadsheet of truths. Next Thursday? I had plans. Not with Julie. With Darren. But we'll get to that. Thursday afternoon arrived like a tax bill, unwanted, slightly ominous, and guaranteed to ruin someone's day. I had my own plans set in motion, and it involved neither drama nor confrontation. I wasn't interested in moral high ground or emotional breakdowns. I was going to do something far more satisfying, professionally inconvenience Darren in a way that couldn't be traced back to anything except polite curiosity and excellent timing. My opportunity came through an unexpected yet delightful source: Julie's workplace newsletter. Yes, the newsletter. A digital bulletin, sent weekly, filled with thrilling content like tips for optimizing Slack usage and bringing mindfulness into monthly reports. Julie forwarded it to me once because I joked that I didn't understand how her department functioned. I guess she assumed I was fascinated by corporate wellness initiatives. I wasn't, but I never unsubscribed, and now it was paying off. That week's edition included a note about an upcoming cross-departmental synergy workshop. Nothing gets people excited like fake collaboration and mandatory group activities, right? The best part? It was optional, which meant everyone hated it even more. I called the workshop organizer, a cheerful HR coordinator named Denise who spoke like her voice was trapped in a continuous smile, and asked if external guests could attend as observers. She said no. Then I said I was a workplace culture blogger. Yes, I lied, but tastefully. She changed her tone instantly, suddenly over-explaining the agenda and offering me a front-row seat to showcase our commitment to interpersonal excellence. Interpersonal excellence. I nodded, thanked her, and wrote down the time and location like I was preparing for a documentary shoot. I wore my most boring shirt, light blue, 3 buttons, slightly wrinkled, and arrived 5 minutes early to blend in. I sat in the back, notebook in hand, fake blog title scribbled on the cover, The Corporate Mirror. Not a real thing, but vague enough to pass for a professional project. And then he entered. Darren, dressed like he fell into a clearance rack labeled Manager Casual. He was holding a folder, probably filled with printouts of slides that had too many bullet points. He looked around the room, spotted me, and froze. Recognition flickered behind his glasses. The internal panic was back. I smiled. He took the only seat left, which was directly across from a woman aggressively clicking her pen and chewing gum like it owed her money. He glanced at me again. I waved, just a little. He turned away like he suddenly remembered he'd left the oven on. The workshop began with a group exercise titled 2 Truths and a Lie. Corporate icebreakers are a form of psychological warfare. Nothing gets strangers to hate each other faster than pretending they want to learn fun facts about people they avoid in the break room. When it was Darren's turn, he cleared his throat and said, "I've run a half marathon. I can speak conversational Spanish, and I once got mistaken for a celebrity." Nobody cared. One guy guessed the lie was Spanish. Another said the marathon. I said the celebrity thing was true. He looked like someone who'd be mistaken for the host of a low-budget game show. He laughed nervously. Nobody else did. Checkmate. Next came the team-building exercise. The facilitator split us into groups and gave us a problem-solving scenario involving a fake company that needed to downsize without impacting morale. A contradiction, but apparently perfect for synergy. We were asked to pretend we were executives. Darren got assigned as group lead. I don't know why. Maybe fate just likes irony. He started off strong. "I think the first thing we need to do is analyze cost versus engagement." He looked proud of this sentence, like he'd just invented fire using buzzwords. Then I chimed in. "Should we consider how personal relationships in the office could complicate objectivity in these decisions?" Darren blinked. "Well, I mean, yes, I suppose personal dynamics can influence. Especially when those dynamics cross professional boundaries," I added. "Like if 2 coworkers were romantically involved, that could impact transparency, don't you think?" There was a beat of silence. Someone in the group nodded thoughtfully. "Oh yeah, that's a big HR issue." Darren laughed, but it sounded like a deflating air mattress. The workshop ended with a Q&A session. I didn't ask any questions. I just took notes and made direct eye contact with Darren every time he spoke. Afterward, Denise, the HR lady, approached me, asking if I wanted to do a write-up. I said sure, as long as I could interview a few team members later, including Darren. She was delighted. Darren was not. That night at dinner, Julie asked how my day was. "Enlightening," I said. "I got a lot of insight into office culture." She nodded slowly, suspicious but unsure of what to be suspicious about. She mentioned how her day was nonstop. That's how she described it. Nonstop. A vague term for something that included spreadsheets, fake collaboration, and Darren trying not to spontaneously combust. The next morning, Darren emailed me. Yes, he found my fake blog address and sent an email with the subject. Yesterday's workshop. Urgent clarification. It was exactly as desperate as it sounds. He asked politely that I refrain from publishing any material that could mischaracterize professional conduct. I responded with, "Don't worry, I only write the truth." I didn't send it from a burner email. I wanted him to know I saw him. Not dramatically. Not publicly. Just enough to let him squirm every time he opened Outlook. A few days passed. Julie continued pretending everything was fine. I continued collecting more insights than a corporate consultant with a bonus on the line. But here's where it gets better. That Sunday, I opened our home desktop, the same one Julie used for work backups, and noticed something new in the recycling bin. A folder labeled Archive, Personal. She tried to delete it, which, in our household, is like hiding something in a drawer labeled Definitely Not Suspicious. I restored it. Inside were photos. Nothing explicit. Nothing scandalous. Just selfies with Darren in various conference rooms, coffee shops, and my favorite, outside a paint-your-own pottery studio. He was holding a ceramic mug that said, "Be present." The man was drinking from a mug with life advice while emotionally loitering in my marriage. I copied the folder to a flash drive and named it Marketing Materials. Not because I had a plan yet, but because naming it that gave me joy. Julie never mentioned the missing folder. Darren never emailed again. But the next part? That's when I stopped being the guy who listened through air vents and started becoming the man who made his own meeting invitations. And yes, Darren will be getting one. The thing about revenge, or let's call it mature administrative countermeasures, is that it works best when the target doesn't realize he's part of the plan until he's already halfway through politely agreeing to it. Which brings us to Darren's surprise invitation. It arrived in his inbox Tuesday morning, disguised as a standard feedback request from an internal survey initiative. The subject line read, "Employee Peer Insight Session, Confidential Evaluation Review, Response Requested." It looked official enough to make someone sweat but vague enough not to trigger HR-level anxiety. I sent it from a Gmail address formatted like a third-party HR contractor, insightplusconsulting.management@gmail.com. No one suspects Gmail if it sounds boring enough. He replied in 9 minutes, probably with trembling hands. His message was full of qualifiers. He was happy to support feedback initiatives and always open to professional growth. That's how insecure people with middle-tier management aspirations communicate when they think someone's evaluating them. I gave him a time slot, Wednesday, 10 a.m., via video conference. Duration, 30 minutes. Required, webcam on. Then I set the stage. I created a simple PowerPoint. Title slide, Performance Review Calibration, Participant 6C. All fake, all nonsense, but formatted in a way that Darren would assume came from someone who uses phrases like cross-functional leverage in daily conversation. I wore a button-down, glasses, and a headset. He logged in 2 minutes early, because of course he did. The webcam clicked on, and there he was, blinking too much, sitting too straight, the smile of a man who's read one too many articles about body language in Forbes. "Morning, Darren," I said with a tone just formal enough to pass. "Good morning, do I call you?" "Alex will do," I said. No last name, no title. Let him make up his own narrative. We started with generic questions. Describe your leadership style. How do you handle interpersonal conflict? He answered like he was trying to earn a badge in diplomacy. All half smiles and words like proactive, transparent, and solution-oriented. 10 minutes in, I clicked to the next slide. A new prompt appeared. How do personal relationships impact your objectivity in performance management? Darren blinked. Could you rephrase that? Sure, I said. Do you feel your judgment has ever been influenced by personal dynamics with coworkers? Well, I'd say I maintain professional boundaries in all cases, he said quickly. So, you've never had a personal relationship, romantic or otherwise, that affected your interactions with direct colleagues? His nostrils flared slightly. Not that I can recall. I nodded, typed something into my fake notes, and then clicked the next slide. This one had a bullet list. Inappropriate use of internal communication tools. Undeclared interpersonal conflicts of interest. Use of company property for non-professional purposes. Darren coughed. Sorry, is this all still anonymous? Of course, I said. This is purely developmental. Think of it as a mirror. A mirror. He seemed to interpret that as a threat, which made it my new favorite word. He started fidgeting, adjusted his collar, asked if this review was prompted by someone specific. I said we'd had pattern indicators, which meant nothing and everything, depending on how guilty you felt. Pattern indicators, he repeated. I nodded, stone-faced. Just trends we're monitoring. There's been elevated commentary around cross-boundary team activity. Naturally, we look into these things to ensure professional environments are preserved. He didn't respond, just stared for a second like he was trying to calculate whether Julie had confessed something. She hadn't, but his imagination was doing excellent work. I let the silence linger, then thanked him for his time and ended the call. Total runtime, 28 minutes. Enough to plant permanent seeds of paranoia. That evening, Julie was unusually cheerful. She told me Darren was a bit off all day. Distant, distracted. At one point, he canceled a meeting because he had something urgent come up. She laughed when she said it, assuming it had nothing to do with her. I smiled, told her I was glad her day was entertaining, and offered to take out the trash. The next day, I launched Phase 2. Julie's department was organizing a quarter-end performance showcase, a public event where each team gave short 5-minute updates on their biggest achievements of the quarter. Very corporate, very boring, but they always made it competitive, offering a small prize for the most innovative presentation. Julie volunteered Darren to be their speaker, which I found beautiful. She thought she was helping him build visibility. Really, she just tossed him into the most awkward 15 minutes of his career. I contributed anonymously to the event by uploading a short audio clip to the shared folder the event used for media support. It was from Darren and Julie's strategy session Word document, one of the recorded team's messages Darren had left as a voice comment. Just a harmless one, of course. Julie, I really value our dynamic. I feel like we're aligned on a deeper level than just task lists. That's all I used. Nothing scandalous. But out of context, it sounded ridiculous, especially when it played 5 seconds after Darren began his slides. It took him a moment to realize what was happening. The room of 40-plus staff members stared in confusion as his voice, romantic and weirdly theatrical, echoed over the speaker system. Julie's jaw dropped. Darren fumbled with the laptop like it had betrayed him, which, to be fair, it had. He ended the presentation early. Said he'd email his slide deck later. left the room without making eye contact with anyone. I wasn't there, but someone recorded it and sent it to me. Accidental or not, someone clearly wanted to preserve the moment. I saved it to my marketing materials folder. At home, Julie was quieter than usual. Said she was tired. I asked how the event went. She said it was a disaster and that Darren needed some space. I nodded sympathetically and offered to make tea. That night, I backed up all shared financial documents, logged out of the family cloud storage, and reset the password. Julie asked if the internet was being weird. I said probably. In bed, she scrolled through her phone while I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how many more Thursday afternoons Darren might spend trying to explain his voice comment to HR. Probably not many. But I wasn't done. Because next, I was going to send Julie a calendar invite. Not to a confrontation. To a presentation. With slides. The calendar invite landed in Julie's inbox at precisely 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, scheduled for 8 p.m. that evening. Location, our living room. Subject, quarterly relationship health review, confidential. I made sure to use her usual formatting, initial caps, dash for emphasis, no emoji. I didn't want to give her reason to think this wasn't official. It just wasn't the kind of official she was used to. She read it while brushing her teeth, gave it a double take, and then walked into the hallway holding her phone like it had given her a riddle. "What's this?" she asked. I looked up from the laundry basket like I didn't already have 2 printed handouts waiting on my desk upstairs. "Oh, just something I've been working on. Figured it was time we did a performance check-in of our own." She squinted. "Like a couples thing?" "Sort of. It's got slides." "Why does it sound like a business meeting?" "Because it is one," I said. "A very important, highly confidential, relationship stakeholder check-in. No dress code." She made a face like she wasn't sure whether to laugh or ask more questions, then mumbled something about how weird I was being and went back to the mirror. At 7:58 p.m., I walked into the living room carrying my laptop, 2 chairs, and a printout with her name on it. The cover sheet read, Personal/Relational Metrics Overview, Julie R. Internal Review. Subtitle, Unauthorized Collaborations and Communication Drift. She was sitting on the couch in leggings and an old college sweatshirt, scrolling like she was hoping the internet would solve her uneasiness. When she saw me set up the chairs, she gave me a look you usually reserve for people who show up to barbecues with PowerPoints. "I thought you were kidding," she said. "You clicked accept on the calendar." I thought it was a joke. "Julie, nothing about our marriage should be a joke." I said it with the deadpan delivery of someone who once watched 12 hours of her favorite crime show without blinking. She sighed and sat down across from me, arms folded like I just told her there was going to be a pop quiz. Which, in a way, there was. "Okay," I said, clicking the trackpad. "Let's begin." Slide 1. Review objectives. Assess current communication patterns. Identify performance-impacting interpersonal conflicts. Explore breach of trust incidents within operational timelines. Julie blinked. "Is this seriously about us?" "Yes." "It sounds like a management training course." "You're being reviewed as a partner in a long-term collaboration project. It's only fair you're familiar with the language." Slide 2. Behavioral flags identified in Q3, Q4. Each bullet came with a polite, date-stamped notation. Increased device shielding behavior. X. Screen turned away during conversations. July 11th, August 3rd, September 15th. Communication discrepancies between reported whereabouts and observed patterns. X. Yoga sessions ending in department store checkouts. August 22nd, September 5th. Digital activity anomalies. X. Shared document strategy session.docs with metadata showing irregular revision times and collaborative comments from one Darren T. Julie's expression shifted like she'd suddenly realized the presentation wasn't going to be one of those feel-good. "What are our love languages types?" "Wait, what?" "You looked at my files. I reviewed shared assets linked to our household device network. All content was backed up automatically." She tried to respond, but I moved on to slide 3, external collaborator analysis. This was a full audit on Darren. Work history, recent promotions, the number of team lunches tagged on his Instagram. I included a pie chart of the days Julie and Darren were in the same meeting room during lunch hours, paired with timestamps of Teams messages containing phrases like, "You see me better than anyone else ever has." Julie finally found her voice. "Aaron, what is this?" "Insight," I said. "And accountability." "I can't believe you. This is insane." "I'm sorry, I didn't hear a denial in there." She stood up, paced a bit, then turned back with a forced half-laugh. You know what this is? This is deflection. You've been so distant for months, and now you're building spreadsheets about my coworkers. Slide 4. Shift in emotional bandwidth allocation. I turned the laptop screen toward her. This one was a bar graph. My emotional check-ins by week, compared to her responses, measured in word count and tone. Green bars were supportive. Yellow were non-committal. Red were dismissive or redirected toward unrelated workplace stress. Julie stared at the chart like it had personally insulted her. You tracked my tone? Julie, I was managing the emotional resources of a shared household during a time of decreased partner engagement. This was for clarity. You're treating this like a job review. Isn't that what marriage is? A joint project with shared responsibilities, performance expectations, and accountability? And unlike Darren, I don't leave voice notes and shared documents saying I resonate with your vulnerability. Her mouth opened, then closed. I could see her doing the math, how much I knew, how I knew it, and how impossible it would be to talk her way out of a bullet point list. Slide 5. Future of the collaboration. 2 columns. Option A, terminate partnership, and Option B, restructure terms. Are you giving me options? No, I said. I'm informing you that these are the paths I'm currently reviewing. This isn't a vote. You're being cold. I'm being systematic. Emotional chaos has already cost this partnership stability, and we're not running a charity here. She dropped into the chair again, now quiet. I don't even know what you want from me, she said finally. Honesty would have been a nice start. Transparency. A quarterly debrief now, and then instead of a secret romance built on mutual compliments and pretend synergy. She didn't respond. Julie, I said, closing the laptop. This isn't about punishing you. It's about clarity. You've been out here co-managing 2 partnerships, and now one of them is on notice. There will be consequences. Her voice was small. So what now? I pulled out a printout, hers. A form titled, End of Cycle Evaluation and Feedback Reflection. I'd like you to fill this out, I said. Nothing long. Just a few questions. Things like, what were your key takeaways from this quarter's emotional decisions? How did your individual choices contribute to overall marital performance? Would you rehire yourself for this position? She took the form, didn't speak. If you need help with phrasing, I added, I've highlighted examples in the appendix. We sat there a while. No yelling. No tears. Just silence between 2 people, one of whom had been preparing slides for a week while the other thought Thursdays were just about Darren. She didn't fill out the form that night. She left it on the coffee table and went to bed early, which was fine, because I still had 1 slide left to show her. And that one didn't need bullet points. It had signatures. Julie spent the next 3 days walking around like someone trying to remember whether they left the oven on or their marriage. She didn't bring up the presentation. She didn't fill out the form. She folded it into quarters and stuck it in the middle of a book she wasn't reading, an autobiography by a woman who climbed mountains for personal growth. The irony was lost on her. She started doing small things, like complimenting my shirts again or asking how my day was with an expression that said she was legally required to. Once, she offered to pick up dry cleaning I had already picked up. This, I assumed, was the new Julie initiative, like customer service in place of accountability. Darren, meanwhile, had apparently entered a witness protection program. His name hadn't come up once. Julie did refer to someone at work being under review, which made me wonder if she'd decided Darren was the true villain in this story. A convenient rewrite. But I wasn't here for edits. I was here for the final chapter. And final chapters, when written with care, don't come with explosions. They come with folders, timestamps, and signatures. So I scheduled one more meeting. This time, it wasn't a surprise. I sent her the invite on a Thursday morning with the subject line, Final Review and Agreement Discussion. I scheduled it for Saturday at 11 a.m. No slides. Just 2 chairs, a document, and a pen. She didn't respond to the invite. But she was there, sitting at the dining room table when I came in. She wore the expression of someone who knew a bill was coming due but still hoped it might get lost in the mail. I placed the folder on the table, sat down, and opened it. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a summary. Not legal, just factual. I called it Project Closeout Notes. It included dates, events, and a brief explanation of the scope of trust erosion. I kept it simple. 1 paragraph. Bullet points optional. She read it without speaking. Then I slid over the second document, an agreement. 2 copies. 1 for me, 1 for her. It wasn't a divorce paper. Not yet. That would have been too abrupt, and frankly, too easy. What I gave her was a separation framework, a formal document outlining the boundaries, terms, and next steps for disengagement. Sections included asset freeze, no shared purchases above $50 without written consent. Communication policy, limited to logistics, calendar coordination, and essential household issues. Emotional conduct clause, no late-night memory trips, no passive-aggressive nostalgia, no sudden interest in old playlists. Timeline for full transition, 30 days. I didn't use the word goodbye. I used operational disengagement. Julie looked at the signature line for a long time. "This is really what you want?" she finally asked. I shrugged. "It's not about what. It's about math. And we're running a deficit." She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't even deny. That part had passed. Now we were in the stage where people pretend they need time to process, as if betrayal comes with a grace period. "You really had this all figured out," she said, her tone halfway between annoyance and admiration. "No," I replied. "I just stopped pretending I didn't." She stared at the pen like it had insulted her. Then, slowly, she signed. She didn't ask if I was seeing someone else. She didn't ask if I hated her. I think she knew the answers. Or maybe she'd already assigned herself a different narrative, one where she was misunderstood and I was distant. People do that. It helps them sleep. She left the room without another word. I stayed and reviewed the paperwork one more time, not because I needed to, but because that's what I do. I check details. I read the fine print. The following Monday, I scheduled an appointment with a family attorney. Not because I was in a rush, but because Julie wasn't the only one who could pivot. By Wednesday, she moved into her sister's guest room. She said it was temporary. I didn't ask for a timeline. I didn't update my relationship status on anything. I didn't post cryptic quotes or start jogging at sunrise. I just reclaimed a house, one drawer at a time. Her stuff didn't vanish, it migrated. Slowly. Quietly. Like the end of a season you knew was coming, but still checked the forecast every morning hoping for something else. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, I got an email. It was from her. The subject line was, "Clarification request. Exit interview." No greeting. No, "How are you?" Just one question in the body of the email. "When did you first know?" I read it twice. I didn't reply. She'd had her chance to speak, to clarify, to confess something. But she chose silence, strategy, and Darren. And I chose a PowerPoint. I closed the email, dragged it to the archived folder, and clicked Mark as read. Sometimes the best way to move on is to treat it like what it was, paperwork that took too long to file. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel